How we doing, everybody? Buenos dias! Welcome to the Aspen Ideas Climate Summit. Now, I'm Mariana Atencio, and I'm deeply honored to be hosting this pivotal event in my hometown. Here in our beloved city of Miami, we don't just bear witness to the effects of climate change, we live through them every single day. And beyond our shores and my work as a former national correspondent at Univision and NBC, I covered natural disasters for over 10 years. And when people find out that I do this work, their first reaction is usually, wow, you must have seen some terrible things. But actually, it's the opposite. It is in the worst of circumstances where I have seen people come together and rise beyond labels and stereotypes and polarization. Standing on this stage today, I am filled with hope. And that hope stems from the resilience and the ingenuity and the passion of the change makers in this room. I come to you today only not as a journalist, but also as a proud Henry Crown Fellow at the Aspen Institute. I fervently believe, thank you so much, that the Aspen Institute is leading the way in the fight against climate change. And today, we're not just here to discuss problems, we are also here to present innovative solutions. We are here to harness the collective wisdom and the creativity of everyone in this auditorium to chart a new course toward a new sustainable planet. You're gonna hear from city planners and activists, from scientists and artists, and every single voice offers a unique perspective and an expertise that they bring to the table, and together we can lead the change. So let's roll up our sleeves and get to work. Let's make sure that we amplify the voices of those most affected. Let's ensure that equity and justice are always at the forefront of our efforts, because the future of our planet depends on the actions that we take today. So thank you for being here. Let's ensure that this summit is a turning point in the fight against climate change. Welcome to Aspen Ideas Climate. So one brief housekeeping note before we get started. Please download and refer to your Aspen Ideas Climate app for any updated information on speakers and events. Are you ready to begin? Okay. So to kick it off, as someone who knows the collective power of stories, we're gonna start with a powerful panel on storytelling to present this possible tomorrow that exists when we take care of our planet. So let's please welcome to the stage the executive producers of the upcoming PBS series, A Brief History of the Future, filmmaker and activist Kathryn Murdoch, and futurist Wallach.
Hey, come on.
Please take a seat. Thank you. All right, so before we begin, in order to frame the conversation and to get you excited to watch this series, we have a trailer for you. Here is A Brief History of the Future. Let's watch.
One moment, please.
How well we live tomorrow will depend on the action we take today.
When you hear the term the future, what does that conjure up? Human activity has damaged the systems of life that sustain us all.
We're seeing drought, wildfires, flood.
We could commit ourselves to extinction, or we could commit ourselves to a civilization in which human beings can continue to thrive.
Civilization is precious. Life is precious.
I set out in search of people who are building better futures.
Humans are extraordinary. We're such a miracle.
The land is resilient. We are resilient.
Fusion is really the holy grail of energy.
This is the largest 3D printed community in the world.
I have to know where I came from so that we can move forward.
What does it mean to be human at this moment in time? To care?
Boy, that really blows my digital mind.
We've got to believe that there's a better way,
where people have clean air, clean water, available food, cheap, abundant energy.
The big shared human projects, confronting climate change, staying a step ahead of the next pandemic, preventing nuclear conflict, will require cooperation.
That's the key for success. We are one team, the world.
Using human innovation and the brain that we can unlock, our problems will dissolve overnight. That's so important, Ari. Here. This.
People are building better futures for themselves and the communities around them.
This sustainable building is the cleanest power plant in the world. The roof is an alpine ski slope.
What we do and the things we create over the next few decades will shape all minds going forward for the rest of time.
Hundreds of years from now, we are going to look back on our generation as the most pivotal in human history.
All right, let's kick it off. Kathryn, the 6-part series is the first by your studios, Futurific, and it challenges this prevailing notion of a bleak and pessimistic future when it comes to the discussion about climate change. What alternative perspective does it present viewers?
I think the most important thing that we wanted to get across was that we needed to start asking the question, what if we got it right? What would that look like? Because we know, especially in this room, we really know all of the risks, we know all the things that can go wrong, and we are sort of steeped in all of those possibilities, but we don't spend enough time really thinking about what is a clean energy future like? What does it smell like? What does it sound like? How is it better? I mean, and so much of our time is spent on fear, and really, it's very important to have warnings about what could go wrong, but too much fear really triggers a feeling of not wanting to deal with it and pushing it away. And so what we want is to start to help people visualize what they're trying to get to. What's the ultimate goal of where we're going, and how do we plot a path there?
So it's almost like this conversation, and we talked about this, about the blue zones, right? And everybody gets really excited about that. How can we imprint that excitement about the future on the climate change discussion? Ari, to you, you are the host of the series. We saw you there on the trailer. What are some key moments that stuck with you, and why?
I mean, look, everyone in this room is going to be well-versed on a lot of the solutions that are happening right now in terms of climate change, but we also look at artificial intelligence, synthetic biology, housing issues, education, food. What stuck out to me more than any one specific kind of episode, segment, or element was the mindset shift that everyone I was talking to had gone through. So much to Kathryn's point, these were not folks who were focusing on like the doom and gloom. Mm-hmm. These were folks that were saying, in one way or another, I'm going to contribute not just towards a solution in the kind of classic climate change solution set, but towards solutions for better tomorrows writ large. We visited a place called Hojevec, just outside of Amsterdam, which is known, it's a woman who runs a thing called a dementia village. And I won't go into the details of it, but in the US, if you have neurocognitive degenerative disease, you kind of go into a locked hospital ward. Whereas what they've done with Hojevec is build an entire village so that folks can shop and go to restaurants and do a whole host of things. Now, what does that have to do with climate change? Directly, it's not directly obvious, but what it is it's emblematic of a mindset of saying, what are the ways that we normally would address something? Mm-hmm. We would be very highly reactive. This is a proactive, normative way of dealing with that issue. And so for me, the show, 72 different people I talk to around the world, you'll see that constantly, folks that are thinking and doing outside of the normal ways of how you may tackle any sort of kind of problematic situation.
And we get to see you in a snowmobile.
And it's on a snowmobile, which coincidentally at one point broke through the ice and we had a drone following me. So you see another quarter second of that, you almost lost me. So we only almost did 3 episodes. It was gonna be a short docu-series.
Kathryn, when we talk about climate change, why is it important to include topics like AI and restoring coral reefs and making sure that this picture that you're painting is truly holistic when it comes to possible futures?
Well, we did set out to really focus on the future as a larger subject as opposed to just climate change. Climate change plays a part because it is going to be a part of our future. But these things are not siloed. They all interact. And one of the things that we really wanted to explore, so often when we talk about the future, we talk about technology. But we know that technology alone is not going to save us. In fact, we know, everyone in this room knows that we have the technologies to solve climate change, but we need the political and social systems functioning as well. And so some of the things we look into, like citizens' assemblies, for example, are a way forward in figuring out how to get people more involved and feeling like they have agency in government. We talked to President Macron about how they dealt with the Yellow Vest protests around energy pricing, and they used these citizens' assemblies to move forward. And it's also been used on topics like abortion and things like that. So very hot button, but they've come up with solutions and made people feel like they're part of the process and solving problems. And so that's the type of thing we want to look at. It's not just, yes, there's whiz-bang technology in there and it's fun. You've got mushroom leather and fusion and methane tracking satellites and things like that. But it's also, what are the systems around all of those things that need to be functioning so that we can get to that better future?
I love that. So not just the focus on technological advances, but also developing functional social systems.
Yeah.
Ari, we just heard Kathryn name drop President Macron. We saw Pete Buttigieg in the trailer. What are some of these interviews that you got to conduct that people may know of in the series?
Look, one of the, when you're doing something like this, you always kind of go between like the very famous and the least famous. So I'll give two quick examples. One, I met with Kylian Mbappe, who is the French kind of global soccer football superstar. And with him, we talked about something very, very specific, which is the role of vision. And Kathryn talked about that in the beginning, which is, what I said to Kylian was very, very obvious. When you get up to take a penalty kick, do you envision yourself missing the kick or getting the kick in the back of the net? And he goes, of course I envision myself getting the ball into the back of the net. And where we go with that is the realization that as a society, we have not developed either necessarily the visioning power or to actually even have the real conversation about what does the ball in the back of the net look like for Homo sapiens over the next several decades. So we know what it is that we don't want. We more often than not do not articulate what we do want. And then finally, I met with a professor 2 hours north of Tokyo, and he does a thing called future design. So when he works with a community and organization about how they want to plan kind of long-term policy, he'll take about a third of the audience or a third of the participants, and he has them don these kind of ceremonial golden robes. And when you put on these golden robes, and it looks very cool, you immediately become a proxy for future generations, so those who cannot vote or be in the room. So you're no longer advocating for the present citizenry, you're advocating for the citizens of that town or that organization or that country 20, 30 years out. So those are kind of two examples of someone you know bringing a very interesting perspective to this conversation, someone you don't know who's completely rethinking how we plan for the long term.
That's fascinating. Kathryn, what are some of the challenges that you face as an environmental advocacy leader, given your family life?
I think one of the main reasons I did this project was actually because my daughter came to me a few years ago and said she didn't see any hope for the future. And I was really shocked because I've been working on climate change for like 17 years. And she knows all the solutions that we work on, and we do democracy reform. She's very familiar with all of those things. But she said to me, "But look at the films, look at the television shows, look at the books, especially the YA books. Everything is dystopian." And I sort of went around trying to prove her wrong, and I couldn't. Everything that we have visualized about our future is dystopian. Now, there's some of it's ecological, but there's all kinds of choices. There's 27 flavors of dystopia, but there's no version where we actually get things right. And so that's when I started talking to Ari, and we started coming up with this idea, because I think, we know there's a mental health crisis with our youth. We know they're feeling that they don't have any future, that they shouldn't have kids, et cetera. This is not the right way to go about this. Actually, having children should make you more determined to be a better ancestor for those future generations. And that's the motivation that we had when we were making the show.
Looking at the sense of wonderment and possibility in the younger generations. That is a perfect segue for my last question to you, Ari, which is, the series asks a fascinating question. How can we be the great ancestors that our future selves need us to be? So what is the message for the audience in terms of empowering them to take action toward that positive change?
So look, there's two main takeaways that we want people to have from viewing this show coming out April 3rd, 6-part docuseries, every Wednesday at 9 p.m. For those who actually have linear TV. If you don't, it's on the app and pbs.org and YouTube. It'll be hard to miss this show. Look, we've touched on this, we're gonna touch on it again. It's to actually ask yourself, in any meeting that you're in, be it today or when you go back to work, what does this look like if we get it right? Yes, I don't want to be Pollyannish about it and say we're up against zero obstacles and it's all rainbows and unicorns. But the fact of the matter is, more often than not, and I've been in rooms with you all, we step back and say, these are all the things that are blocking us. This is how bad it's going to get. But if you can actually step back and actually have a vision of what it is that you are heading towards, you are much more likely to get to it and essentially be able to kind of rally people to it. So that's one. Two, it's that sense of agency coupled with awe. A lot of what we show in this show are really cool things. I'm in a nuclear fusion lab. I'm in Iceland and looking at these amazing geothermal, 100%. But the one thing you're going to take away from all the conversations and traveling that I do is everyone there is 100% focused on better futures and being a great ancestor, but they recognize that all started by having a conversation of what does it look like when we get this right? What does it look like if we're successful? And then, I've been a futurist for 20 years. One of the classic things we do is called backcasting. You start at the end and you work backwards to figure out what are the things that you have to do to get there. And so the takeaway from this show, the takeaway for those in the room, the takeaway for those watching, is to have that very strong vision. Know that you're not going to get there overnight. It's not about utopia or dystopia. It's what we call protopia, which is this idea of better tomorrow. It's not perfect, but better. But they start by having that conversation, first with yourself. What is it that I actually want to do? Why did I get started in this in the first place? And then how do I rally others around that vision, or actually plurality of visions of better tomorrows? That's what the show's about, and I hope people watch it and take back, be it at their dinner table or their boardroom table or wherever you are, the desire to have those conversations with those around you to think about what it is that you want to head towards together.
So a reminder for folks, April 3rd, 9 p.m. on PBS. If you can't catch it on linear TV, watch it on
PBS app, YouTube. You Google A Brief History of the Future, we will find you.
So watch, share, and amplify. Big round of applause for Ari and Kathryn. Thank you, guys. I'm going to ask you to exit stage left. By the way, you can amplify and share the conversations and takeaways that you're hearing on this stage by using our hashtag Aspen Ideas Climate.